It's Just Business with Steve Thomas and your host, Chris Larry.
Hello and welcome to another episode of It's Just Business on the Hogstye Network, the show where we look at the dollars and the cents of the sports media business industrial complex, ready to wave in, wave out, and wave in a year's transition. How you doing, Steve?
Oh, I'm just doing awesome. I'm in the Hogstye's Nashville offices today. People don't know that we're paying serious rent in a Nashville office.
Which has skyrocketed lately, so that's not a cheap rent.
Yeah, our downtown, we're in a major downtown skyscraper, overlooking the football stadium. It's wonderful. No, but I mean, we're recording this on the morning of New Year's Eve. I personally have a habit of doing nothing on New Year's Eve because I don't like New Year's Eve particularly. It's not my thing. What are your New Year's Eve plans?
We invite the same couple families up to our place upstate and just sort of stay inside and do inside things.
Yeah, that's kind of the inside things. Yeah, certainly where I am too. I do not want to be out in a million people doing silly things.
Yeah, 100%.
But if you could ever find like a decent concert, I would do that. But there aren't any
balloon cost though. You also have to pay triple.
Well, but I don't want to go to like the big New Year's Eve party. That would, being the introvert that I am, that makes me want to run screaming. But if there was like a decent show I could just go to, I would do that. But those tend to happen on New Year's Eve. It's all like the come rage with us New Year's Eve. And no.
Yeah, you got to buy the package. Yeah,
there's a lot of that in Nashville, here.
Oh, I'm sure you could have fun down there.
Our office overlooks, the whole area.
But at the same time, that's as someone who does enjoy going out, probably a teeny bit more than you, Steve, as a general rule. New Year's Eve is amateur night. You can go have fun in Nashville on a Wednesday in March. You don't need New Year's Eve.
Well, I think Nashville has become the Las Vegas of the Midwest, kind of.
Yeah, they just did that open container, right? Now you can have open containers in that 9-block radius.
Yeah, so downtown Broadway. There is, it's kind of like the Strip. People wandering around everywhere, drinks in hand, and all. The difference is obviously there's no casinos, but it's still, club after bar after country honky tonk, and it's like it is the capital of bachelorette parties.
Oh yeah, that is undeniable. Like you can't run out to get half and half and a bag of chips without running into a bachelorette party.
I bet some lady down here a while ago who called them woo girls. Because they're always in those things going woo.
No, it is nuts. Yeah, it's like Nashville, Vegas, Bourbon Street, obviously in New Orleans. Actually, Beale Street in Memphis isn't that dissimilar either. Yeah, there's
I
a couple
think
of
Beale
spots.
Street is as much of a scene anymore as Nashville is now, though.
No, Nashville has definitely surpassed it.
Yeah, but anyway, so that's where I am. But I will not be going out tonight. Hopefully, everybody had a good, safe, most importantly, safe New Year's, so for sure.
Well, yes, everyone be safe. I've seemed to have been sidestepping ailments for the last 3 weeks, so hopefully it doesn't. And last night I was breaking down cardboard boxes, as usually is part of this time of year, and the corner smacked me right in the eyeball. So,
well, see, I have this cut on my top of my head now, and what happened is I was at a car wash, and so I have the rag, I dried the car, and I shot a basketball shot from 15 feet away to the bucket where the towels go, and the bucket jumped out of the way before my shot got to the bucket, right? So the bucket moved. And so then the shot, not my fault because my shot was 100% on. So then I had to go walk to the rag and put up. And then when I bent down to pick up the rag, the corner of this metal sign above the bucket jumped out and attacked me. Like for no reason whatsoever. It jumped out and physically attacked me and hit me in the head. It wasn't because I wasn't paying attention. This sign moved. The bucket moved and the sign moved. And so this is why I now have a cut on my head.
Inanimate objects are aligning against Steve.
Yes, they are.
I think that the lesson for you kids out there is don't get old. That's the golden rule here.
Just don't find animate signs. That's the bigger lesson.
All right. Well, the bigger lesson for our show might be the NFL, because something we've talked about, Steve. We've been talking about who will take over the NFL Sunday ticket probably for about 3 years, because everybody knew that DirecTV was a dying thing. It had been passed around through a few different corporate parents. It was a dying thing. Satellite dishes, all that. We all know that. So people have been watching this for a while. And in the past year, we had some big players, your Amazons, your Apples of the world. Apparently, which might get into in a minute, Apple got pretty close. This almost seems like a, kind of a, right up to the altar at a wedding type deal before it crumbled, runaway bride style. But it looks like, inked, that YouTube/Google/Alphabet is the winner of the Sunday ticket, paying a cool, I think, $2 billion a year for what is ultimately a limited NFL package.
Yeah, it's $2 billion. So there was a good video that was broadcast on CNBC about this. That's now listed separately on the website, CNBC's website. That's YouTube NFL deal creates new loss leader for Google, says the Ankler's Sean McNulty, and it was dated Friday the 23rd. I don't know, Chris. This seems like an enormous amount of money for. I'm not sure what they're getting. I mean, the video made some interesting points. This Sean McNulty guy, and he said that they'd have to make it not a loss leader. They'd have to price it like $800.
Yeah,
per year, which is clearly way out of the realm of reality. And so they have to hope. This is sort of the mantra of a lot of these streaming services is let's bring in a high profile event to try to reel in more subscribers. Use it more as a hook than as of a profit center in and of itself. And that's sort of, it appears as though where Google is going with this NFL package. Because the guy makes a good point, which is what it really is the market for this. You have a few diehard people who just really, really love football, excuse me, and they want, they're not afraid to watch like, I don't know, the Seahawks and the 49ers if they live in, North Carolina. But that is a pretty limited market. And then you have people like me who are out of town, and I'm maybe a bad example since my fandom is kind of waned, but people who are not in their hometowns and therefore can't watch their team. But that's also a fairly limited number. And so $2 billion really does seem like a lot if they're hoping to make money directly on this deal. So I kind of view it more as kind of a stepping stone into the NFL world, really, and more strictly a profit and loss thing for them. That's my initial thought, because $2 billion is an outrageous amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there really is any other way to look at it in a way. But then also, that's how NFL TV deals have worked for the networks going into the 80s, right? They were always 1980s. These are always loss leaders eventually, because they did so much, and a loss leader, by the way, is, it's a legitimate business tactic. If you're old enough to remember like CDs in Best Buy, you remember you could get a CD, a new release, for $9.99. They were taking a loss on that, but the idea is you walk in for a CD, you walk out with a washer and dryer, right? So those are business strategies. They're not fails necessarily. They can fail, but it's not a like. They know that going in.
The
they
entire
might be wrong
gas
about
station industry is set up as a loss leader.
Yes, exactly. So, and this is how the networks used it for a long time.
But the difference, though, Chris, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but the difference is the networks, you weren't paying for their service. You could, in the early days, it was via antenna. And then it's part of a cable package that you're going to subscribe to even without the NFL. The difference is they're going to make you pay just for this, so I think it's a tougher sell.
Perhaps, yes. But my point is that the NFL has never brought one-to-one value back to the media buyers. It's always been part of a larger strategy, which, some aspect of a loss leader calculus is part of that. So I just don't think that changes much. Now, they could have their estimates wrong, or the gap could be bigger than they intended, whatever. The thing that I think We'll see. It's did they overpay? Of course. Is it a loss leader? Of course. But what it really is Google, who's not been, if you think about it, has not been in a lot of these conversations to some degree. Basically buying the first class ticket into the conversation, right? You see others like Apple, a little baseball here, a little international soccer here. They're kind of a la carte sampling. How do we build? How do we build this? They obviously we're in the game here, but decided it wasn't worth it to them. They're taking a slightly different strategy. This was Google, YouTube, Alphabet, however you want to talk about it, just saying, just get us to the front of the line. It's like getting the golden fast pass at Disney World or whatever, and just getting right to the front, and then letting the chips fall from there. And that, to me, is clearly the strategy. And the one thing I disagreed with the analyst, the talking head, the hosts were morons, but the talking head, who mostly said smart things, which one thing I raised my eyebrow and would push back a little bit on, was that YouTube's YouTube TV package is a dying breed. I actually think he was lumping that too much into cord cutting, because what I've heard a lot of people do is they'll cut the cord to cable and then they'll pick up YouTube TV because they can still get their local channels. They can still, so it's basically just a cheaper streaming cable package. And you add the NFL to that, and you might see a lot more people. And they did say if they added 2 million subscribers to YouTube TV, which is then part of a larger cord cutting, then the calculus starts to change a bit.
If I were Time Warner or Xfinity, I would not market myself as cable TV. I would market myself as an entertainment provider and kind of leave it at that, because I think the idea of saying that cable TV is dying is a bit of a misnomer, a little bit, because all we're really talking about is a provider who's sending signals into your house so you can watch content. And that can be in any form. And so I think the days of a cord running out of your wall, plugging into your TV are probably dying. But the days of you subscribing to a service that sends a bunch of channels onto your screen are very much alive and will be here for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, I think certainly there are I know people who don't have cable TV, but they have YouTube TV, but it's not really dissimilar that much. So that's what
but it's cheaper and easier to do.
Yeah, but I mean, if I were cable providers, I would marketing myself as cable, as a cable provider for sure. So there's that. But in terms of YouTube, I think the question for me is YouTube going to sub-market this stuff out to other providers? For example, you can get the baseball package, like my kid and I do it every year, because one of my kids and I love baseball. So I subscribe, pay whatever it is, $200 a year, and we get MLB. I forget which one. There's multiple kinds. I'm in MLB extra innings. That's what we subscribe. But there's MLB TV, and you can get it in other ways. And so, well, does YouTube have the right to, one, and two, will they want to sell their package to, for example, Xfinity or Time Warner or something else? And they didn't really address that in here, and so we don't know the answer to that. But I think that's a big question. But I do think you're right. Obviously, it's a loss leader. They know that. It appears as though the subscription model is not that you're going to get this package just by subscribing. I think this is what they said. Not just by subscribing to YouTube TV, period, and it magically appears. I think they're going to charge you another fee on top of that.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course.
Yeah, they have to.
But you hit on, I think, what is the most interesting part of this deal, which they made a point of really emphasizing. Like everywhere you read about this, it's like bullet point 1 is the cost, and bullet point 2 is the fact that they have some freedom with their pricing and delivery. And so another loss leader aspect of this creates a very dynamic laboratory for Google and YouTube TV with something that, critical mass of people want. That's a guarantee. NFL football. And they can experiment with lots of things. I think you're going to see a la carte games. Like, well, I can't watch this on my local. Boom, I'll pay $7.99 for, Chiefs Buffalo, or whatever. Or some, you are an out of market fan, but like me right now, I have to buy the package but if I know I can't watch week 13, then I just a la carte buy the games I want. I think that's a great point what you said. What's the sub licensing? How do they work out a deal with Buffalo Wild Wings? Things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of. So I think the fact that both sides are talking up, and this is where obviously YouTube, Google, just the internet generally is just such a better delivery partner now than satellite dishes and cables underneath the ground, because it opens up all of those possibilities. And I think that's actually, and so for YouTube to start to say, okay, what's all kinds of different pricing and touch point models can we do with this IP essentially?
I never understood why DirecTV had such limited thinking in what they did in their delivery vehicle. I 2 years ago tried to subscribe to the NFL package on DirecTV via streaming just to see what happened. And I got a message back from DirecTV that said I don't live in the right area to subscribe to the streaming service, and I'd have to go get the full satellite dish. And the rule I think basically is if you're in the New York area generally, or if you have to be in like a downtown apartment area where you can't get a satellite, you don't have a roof to get a satellite dish on, then you could subscribe to streaming basically. But like I would have given them $100, to get the games, and I tried to do that and couldn't. And I think that's just very limiting, and I think that's part of why it ultimately failed to me. So yeah, and the other thing I think YouTube ought to do is not just a la carte games, but how about mini packages? You want to subscribe to the NFC Central package, you get all those games, or just do like, I don't know, the Texans. You want just the Texans games. We've got for the one person out there who would do that. I mean, they ought to break it all the way down like that, because DirecTV never did that. It was always you have to buy the whole thing or not, and you have to hang a satellite dish unless you're like Chris and you live in the middle of New York City, and then that's it. And so it's just limited thinking. It's people who are not creative, because DirecTV could have done all of that.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's what we're going to see. That'll actually be the interesting part of this, going over the next couple of years, actually starting with, next fall or whenever they roll out how you do it next fall. Because I think it begins next year. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 2024, I think. Didn't they say 2024?
Oh, maybe it is 24. That would be kind of fast to fix it by next year.
Yeah. Because they're going to have to figure out the bar part, because that's bars were all these bars and sports bars and stuff were all DirecTV subscribers because of the NFL package.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have to figure out a way to deliver it because it's such a huge market.
And I think it's not that hard, right? You just said, well, do you have good enough broadband? You can get it. So that's and that means that, there's all kinds of bars and restaurants that didn't want to deal with a satellite dish that might now be like, okay, sure. Yeah, it'll be interesting. The one thing, I'm a consumer of this product now for, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years. I hate it. It's probably the thing I get the most mad about paying for and the service I get back. So I'm curious on that level. But the one thing they're not going to fix is it's still a very limited package. You still have to deal with all the blackout rules, if I'm bouncing around on my, New Orleans Giants looks like it's popping off and I want to bounce over there. Then I get over there. Oh, it's blacked out because you're in the New York area. Well, I don't want to bounce between, I want to be in one service. I'm paying you $350 or whatever it is. Same goes for the primetime games, So instead of having like one thing I can log in and see my NFL, now for what, a third of the games, maybe even a little bit more, I'm got to get off that service. And I was hoping
the obvious reason
something
for that. I mean, obviously, they're trying to protect the NFL broadcasts packages with the networks.
But even like the NFL Network games you can't get, which is the same company. It's maddening.
Well, yeah, but to solve the problem, you could just stream over the local. Technically, you'd have to figure out how to do this, but you could just stream over the local broadcast from the local channel over to your location. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, if you're in New York and you want to watch the Giants game on your YouTube package, then just bring over the local, CBS or Fox affiliate broadcast. That way you get the commercials, so they get the benefit. Because who cares what form, what platform you're watching on? As long as you're watching it and you get to see the commercials, what does it matter? And so I don't know if it's even possible technically to do that, especially with the advent of VPNs and stuff. But that's how to solve it, because we have the same problem in baseball. Like when my beloved Dodgers happen to face the Astros once a year, well, I'm stuck with the Astros broadcast team, which I don't really want to watch. I want to watch the Dodgers broadcast because they talk about the Dodgers players. But I'm stuck with watching the Astros games, and because it's blacked out, and that's why. So if you could just bring in the local channels, I think that would solve the problem.
Yeah, and actually, so that might be because if you were to get YouTube TV, right? Let's say you subscribe to the full YouTube TV, you add it on because it will be an add-on. Hey, we're creating a basic cable and tier structure. I wonder where I've heard that before. But
Exactly, we're reinventing the wheel here.
So you have YouTube TV that gives you your local channels and basically like most of the channels you think are cable. You pay for you add on, and at that point you can bounce between tabs because then you got CB on the local game on one tab on your YouTube TV, and then you're just going over to another tab that's got they'll sell that. Are you tired of because that's the full integrated package, which is which is what they want to sell. They want to sell the most high end thing they can. That'll actually probably start to be a sales pitch.
Because I have a question. Couldn't you just buy a VPN and change your location to like Montana or somewhere and solve that problem?
Yes, you can.
Okay, there you go. So perhaps that's the easiest thing to do is to cheat them. No, we're not advocating that. Although look, the VPNs market themselves as being able to spoof your location anywhere. That's part of the sales pitch of the VPN. So.
Yeah, but the downside is either the good ones are actually kind of pricey, and the bad ones are probably just opening up your computer and your network to all kinds of
you're inviting
malfeasance.
the hacker into your house.
Yeah, you might. Yes, let's not just leave the doors unlocked. Before we go to bed, let's open them all. And
exactly. So you have to figure out the right ones, certainly. But to do it and certainly that's not what the NFL wants you to do, and that's not what the cable companies. It's it's probably against their terms of service, would be my guess if you really drill down into them. But point is, they could solve this problem through a little bit of technical wizardry, and that would be an acceptable solution. Yes. And so I don't know, Chris. I guess the question.
Well, what if you subscribe to YouTube TV plus the NFL package? That means when you're on your NFL package thing, it knows that and it clears the blackout because it knows you're subscribed. That would be another top off. Like get the YouTube TV plus NFL package, and it knows the subscription is valid, and it opens up all games on your NFL ticket.
But again, you'd have to bring in the local broadcast to get it.
Yeah, it would just bring in the feed exactly. Well, that's how it works anyway.
Yeah, but you'd have to get your local broadcast. I assume that's possible because you said you can get local TV on YouTube. Is that right?
Yeah. You can get your local Fox 5 or CBS on your side or whatever.
So they've already solved that technological problem. Okay, so then that's the answer. So the question here is this going to work? And what I mean by is it going to work is will it be profitable? One, and two, will it be done in a way that makes people happy and makes people want to subscribe to this package? I don't think it will be profitable, even in the near term. Maybe the mid to long term, it may be profitable. But I think Google is probably smart enough, and they've seen 20 years of awful management of this product through, DirecTV. So I tend to think they will figure out a lot of the issues that we are talking about. And at some point it may be profitable for them. But I think the future of YouTube TV really and truly is as a competitor to cable TV. Like, hey, we're going to provide you the same or similar service for better. And for example, can they get HBO into the YouTube TV package someday to make up Showtime or whatever other pay service?
I think you already can.
Okay, so they truly are providing streaming cable TV basically.
They're reinventing carriage fees. The only thing different is ultimately, and we're going to go through a lot of change, and there's too much in the market and all this. So right now it's like, what is going on? We're kind of in the, kind of the frontier stage. We're already seeing it. We're going to see it more. Things are going to contract a little bit. There's going to be winners and losers. There's going to be consolidation, buying. But then at the end of the day, all that is just taking advantage of digital delivery systems to package content for point of purchase cost plus being able to sell you ads. In the end, you're going to do, in the end, you're going to pay two ways, right? Probably even three with your data on the back end. But but the only difference in what they're creating here is the delivery mechanism.
Yeah, but the contrary to this is I don't necessarily mind having a cable from the wall to my TV necessarily. Because I have to plug it in once. I don't have to think about it, and that part is done. I never see it again until the day I move from the house. And then two, the Wi-Fi can go down and cable TV can stay up. But with 100% wireless everything, your Wi-Fi goes down, it's over for you, right? And so part of me kind of likes having separate delivery vehicles just to make sure one or the other stays up. Because I think if you look at Wi-Fi availability around the country, you and I, it's fine, and we can afford to pay it. But if that's not to say that someone making 50 grand a year and living in an area in which high fiber, I forget what the name of the term is.
Gigabit.
Yeah, well, I was thinking like the high-speed fiber connections aren't necessarily available. Well, how are you going to get this? And how is it going to be a quality package? And can you afford to do this? Whereas maybe you can't afford to pay a basic cable fee for, $30 a month or whatever. And so I think this is a bit of a first world problem kind of thing. And if you notice, one of the very few things I've agreed with what the federal government has done in recent years is they have been talking about Wi-Fi as infrastructure. Because we're getting to a point where the world can't function without Wi-Fi of some type, but it has to be in a much higher speed to get this to work. And again, you and I are fine, but not everybody has access to that. And so I think if this works big picture, you're going to have to figure out how to deliver high-speed Wi-Fi to everybody, which is not currently possible.
Yeah, you notice like the beginning of this football season when the Thursday night Amazon package started rolling out. And this wasn't a huge chorus, but you'd have people like, it's glitchy for me. I'm like, bro, that's your Wi-Fi. That's not Amazon's broadcast. So that's a you problem. And we're just going to see that scaled more and more.
But yeah, and it's not even really a you problem. It's more of a my local provider problem.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is
it's not an Amazon problem, right? But it's like I haven't. This is part of my problem because what I've told my family here is I'm either doing cable or I'm doing streaming. I'm not paying for both because I'm just not willing to suck up the cost of subscribing to absolutely everything. And so, because you can vote how you want, but since I have veto power, in this decision, we're going to do what I want. And I do cable. And so therefore we just, you're just going to have to go somewhere. If you want to watch the Amazon Thursday night game, you're just going to have to go somewhere else. It's as simple as I haven't seen one single broadcast of them because I just refuse to subscribe to it. And that's part of the problem also. It's why I'm really an advocate of packaging these things together. I think people are sick and tired of having a million different subscriptions, monthly fees for absolutely everything. I hate that. I really hate that. And so I'm far more willing to pay if it's like tapped into my Xfinity bill. For example, my Netflix is on my Xfinity bill. It would bug me to no end to have to pay them separately each month. But because it's on one bill, it's okay. And mentally I feel better about it. But so I think these providers, the YouTubes and the Disneys and HBO, I think the future is somebody needs to get together and market all those things as one and give people one reduced cost for them.
They already are to a degree, and I think the trend will be, and I think it'll be good drip through the course of this coming year. And I think it'll be more like a turned on faucet. But where if like you go to Amazon, right? And now I think you have to be an Amazon Prime subscriber, right? So they get you. The cuts are deep and plentiful, but you can add on anything you want. Showtime, HBO, same goes for Roku, same goes for Apple TV. They're just, what do we used to call them back in the premium channels, right? You can add HBO. So, and then they pay carriage fees to the provider and they split the income and they have all those things worked out. You're exactly right. They're just replicating it. And the thing I'd like to underline that you said earlier, which I think is going to be a fail. But if the Coxes, the Spectrums of the world were smart, they'd be doing that, right? Like what you
That's
said.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
But they're not. And so you know, if you're betting, right, if you're sitting there at the MGM Grand Sportsbook and you're putting a bet on who's going to figure this out faster, Google or Cox Cable, in terms of offering that, you know, you're not
Google
betting
all
on Cox
day.
Cable, right? So, but the path is there for them if they were smart enough.
Yeah, it's just they're a kind of a monolithic company that's been around for decades, and change is hard to
Yeah,
come by. And Google has always been forward thinking. You know,
and
it's
already has
always
the
been,
pipes to a degree. Yeah,
yeah, always been an innovator. Now, what Google doesn't provide is Wi-Fi. You know, whereas Cox Cable and Time Warner and will provide Wi-Fi into your
and they just
house.
turn the cost up for that Wi-Fi if you don't have cable. That's the, you know, like if, I just want, you know, the give me the biggest broadband that you can pump into my house, and just that is usually more expensive than if you added the cable package.
I am a living, breathing example of this. My why it was cheaper. And plus, again, one bill. I'm more happy with one bill. I've got Wi-Fi. I've got cable TV. They throw a home phone in there too, and I kind of like having a home phone, but it's so cheap and it's a part of it. If I cut it out, it'd be more expensive than I
Yeah,
didn't. So I get all of that in one. So I thought maybe if I was advising maybe Google or Amazon, especially Amazon, because I mean Amazon's already maintaining half the internet, as it is through Amazon Web Services. Maybe they need to figure out how to deliver Wi-Fi into homes, and then they could package their services together. I mean, part of the problem is there's a lot of government regulations and like local monopolies on service providing and stuff, and then you're talking about either leasing somebody's fiber capability or throwing in your own. I mean, it's a major, major, major project. But if Jeff Bezos, or not Jeff Bezos, who's the Amazon dude, Bezos, if he is one thing, it's forward thinking. He doesn't think today; he thinks 20 years ahead. So that's what I would be thinking if I were Amazon, especially, is that.
well, Google's been already actually, they've already been working on it, and they probably were a little too forward thinking, because this has actually been Google Fiber has actually been available since like 2008 9ish type of
Really?
thing. And they've actually sunk a ton of money into wiring. What they realize is like, oh yeah, laying this much cable to be ubiquitous is hard, and so they kind of slowed down. But right now, if you just go to fiber.google.com, your internet from a company that believes everyone deserves fast, reliable, fairly priced internet, you can pay $70 a month for now. Location is everything here. It is not anywhere. But if you are in somewhere where they already ran the wires, and I think they've slowed down that, but it's $70 for a gig a month, $100 a month for 2 gigs. So if you were somewhere, which I know Kansas City, it's not just the coast, that Kansas City, I think, was one of the first Google fiber cities,
Mm.
you can already do what you're saying.
Well, then that's yeah. That is the future, I think,
And
right
that's the
there.
loss leader part, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but people are also just human nature for things like that is that most people don't want to change things. Once you real this is the idea behind 1 year free of like Amazon Prime, 1 month free or whatever of your Amazon Prime subscription or your whatever subscription. They give you the free part because most people, once you get in, you're not going to think to cancel it. And once you get used to a product, like I'm used to cable TV and I really want to change it and I don't want the hassle because it's fine. And so once they reel people in, they kind of have you forever. It's kind of like your cell phone provider. You're not going to switch from AT&T to Verizon necessarily every day. And so that's the challenge. Now, again, I think part of the challenge for like Google is that there are some government regulations that are a bit monopolistic, because you have to have easements to be able to lay fiber, and sometimes there are you can't just do every locality won't just do that because they're already in bed with another company, so those are massive challenges, but that's what I would do, and if I were Amazon I would be doing the same thing you know
Yeah. So it's interesting. So you can imagine now, all the reasons you just said, that's a lot of infrastructure and it's a lot of policy and a lot of regulation. So that's what this kind of bogged down for them. But maybe it was just they were just too early, and the demand for streaming and better
yeah.
broadband picks it up again, because you could imagine a world, and if you're in the right market, you could do it right now, where you're paying Google for your internet, then your YouTube TV, and whatever add-on a la carte packages you want from there, and that is Cox.
Well, although if you really want the future, like my hero Elon has got, what is it, Starlight, Star something? He's got availability of Wi-Fi through satellites. Because there was a big controversy of him. He turned that product on for Ukraine and other places, and so maybe no cable, no high fiber cable is the ultimate future.
Yeah. We'll just dive various mix of gamma rays that are in the atmosphere.
We're already gonna dive
Chemtrails.
all that. Y'all are walking around town with earbuds that broadcast and receive signals all day long. It's already drilling into your head as it is.
We're becoming organic androids.
Wasn't there a
All
movie
right.
about this? What was
Which
that cartoon movie? It was set in a future where everybody was a robot and they didn't even walk; they just rolled around in chairs. Remember?
Oh, you're thinking about Wall-E?
Yeah.
But they weren't the only human. That was the twist of that was the only human was the robot. The people, they were in chairs because they were just fed content to the degree they just became fat.
Isn't that where we're going? As it is, I mean,
the only true human was the robot.
Wasn't Wall-E really prescient?
Yeah, no.
About its.
Go watch the third act. You're 10% right. Once Wall-E discovers what's going on, and humanity's just floating around in space, being like fed Diet Coke and content.
Maybe Andrew Tate's Matrix nonsense isn't totally wrong.
Well, getting back.
Did you see Andrew Tate got arrested?
I did, yeah.
Is anybody surprised? No.
Yeah, the internet is not always a safe space. But now we know a little bit more. Well, we always knew, so this is dumb. But we did see the Christmas numbers for the two major sports going head to head. We talked about this when they announced, probably back in the summer whenever the schedule release was, which I think is like spring. We saw this. Now, we said it was an anomaly because just the way the NFL scheduled, and Sunday was Christmas Day, blah, blah, blah. So there was just a sort of like, every 7 or 8 year kind of, anomaly. And so, but it was a bit of a petri dish to see what would happen with not a full slate, but a solid slate of NFL games on Christmas Day going up head to head with NBA, who's traditionally owned that day in terms of sports broadcasts. And it wasn't pretty if you're the NBA.
No. So where we got this, where I originally first thought was a comment on our website. Actually, it's got a better summary than this story does. So go to our website if you want it. But I just lost it. Here it is. Okay, Sportico. NFL buries NBA on Christmas, but there's room for both under the tree, by Anthony Krupe, dated December 28th at almost 5 o'clock p.m. So, Packers Dolphins. Averaged 25.9 million viewers. 42.1 million for the showcase game, which was Dallas. No, sorry, that was the Thanksgiving Day game. I'm going to switch over to the website.
Packers Dolphins.
Here we go. Okay, so I got them in a summary here. Packers Dolphins 29.92 million. Broncos Rams 22.5 million. Bucks Cardinals 17.15 million. Here are the NBA numbers. Get ready. Sixers Knicks 4 million. Lakers Mavericks 4.3 million. Bucks Celtics, that was the main advertised network primetime game, 6 million. Grizzlies Warriors 4.7 million. Suns Nuggets 2.5 million. So the NBA absolutely trounced was absolutely trounced by the NFL. And just for those of you who are math deficient, the lowest rated game was Bucks Cardinals, which was the night game. And then Bucks Celtics primetime was 280% or so below the ratings of the lowest rated NFL game. But if you read the Portico story, they point out that the NBA ratings were actually up over last year. And so that's so that the headline suggests there's kind of a silver lining, and that is it. And so it's not all bad news for the NBA, since they did gain some viewers. Now, I don't think even the NBA didn't think they were going to beat the NFL, right? They knew that. So the question was, how much are they going to get trounced? And they got trounced. But I would be encouraged if I were them that their viewership was up a little bit. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, yeah, this first of all, this is 0% shocking. 0.0.
Yeah,
So, whatever, I guess,
we
to some
predicted it.
degree.
When you
Yeah,
talked about this before, we predicted it.
totally. So this anybody who's even paying a modicum of attention would be not surprised. And I think it kind of one of my kind of like themes on the show is that the interesting debate is not the NFL versus sports. The NFL is off on its own mountain. It's going to do its own thing. It's a juggernaut. It's who wins the scraps. That's actually the interesting part. And I think then this article sort of underlines it. So NBA did a pretty good job with the scraps, and they're probably the king of the scrap heap. So that's the battle, folks. The battle is the attention for everything else. And one thing that this article said, and I think I saw somewhere else commenting on it, is really interesting is, especially with streaming, especially with the power of the NFL, these things that were sacred before are not. The NFL is a 12-month sport at this point. I mean, we're watching people do relay races in March, and so the sports calendar is dominated by the NFL. So these things, the NBA is for Christmas, or the Masters are for May. None of that matters. The NFL is just going to do its thing 12 months of the year. It's going to have content, it's going to have programming, it's going to have an audience. And so it just stampedes the rest of the sports calendar, and the rest of them are just fighting for those scraps and holding on to the traditions where they can.
Don't forget, the NFL Combine dominates ratings, and that's
Yeah.
on. It's not even on a major network, and the Combine will trounce the NBA Finals. So yeah, it is a scraps thing for sure, and the obvious, which is what you said earlier, which is the NFL can't do this every year. They can do it if Chris is on a Saturday or Sunday. They could do this, probably both,
Or
but
Thursday.
yeah, maybe Thursday. But even then, there are rules about who can play on Thursday and when. And so I don't think the NFL would necessarily play a full slate of games on Thursday. They might have like 2 games, but I don't think they're going to do all day football on Thursday because it's too hard to do the schedule. Because if for those of you who don't know, I mean, everybody has to take a turn on Thursday because it's a competitive disadvantage. And then it's a competitive advantage going into the next week. And so I don't know if they would be willing to bend their rules for that.
I don't know where the leap year falls, but I guess next year.
A
So
leap year is
next year,
always election year, presidential
so
election
next
year.
year will Christmas Day be on Monday? It should be, right? Unless
No, I think that would be
theoretically.
the following year. I think 2024 is leap year.
Okay, so next year Christmas Day will be Monday, which
Was
means
was
there's
it
already a
Sunday
game.
this year or was it Saturday?
The Sunday, the
Okay,
Sunday
yeah.
this
So
year.
yeah. Then it'll be Monday. Yes.
So we have a so there's so they'll throw, of course they'll throw, they're not gonna pause Monday Night Football on Christmas Day, especially given
No.
these numbers. So the real test will be the 2024 schedule, where Christmas Day is a Tuesday, or maybe the leap year kicks in as a Wednesday. Same holds. If they program not a full slate, but if there is a game on a Tuesday, Christmas Day, that'll be where that's the tell.
Yeah, I suspect they won't. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Maybe they throw a test out there because I know teams will not want to do that. You
Yeah, it's
know,
weird.
and the Players Association would be vehemently against it. Just again for injury reasons and competitive balance and all that. So I don't think they're going to do it. But you're right. I think the test will be: do they throw even one game out there? Are they willing to do it in any capacity? And if so, then the NBA is just going to have to accept that they're going to lose their hold on Christmas Day. you know.
Yeah. The test will get quicker is this Black Friday game next year. So, which
Yes.
is which is weird. And you don't and the COVID off schedule. In some ways, the COVID year where they were scheduling games throughout, like just out of necessity, it sort of showed them that they could do it. I think there was that might be the wrong lesson on a lot of the ways you just said, and the Players Association will kick and scream. But it's like, oh, we can have
Well,
games on weird
well,
days.
also though, I think the NFL would be wise to remember that sometimes you can have too much of a good thing. Okay, like everybody loves eating pizza and chocolate cake, but if you ate pizza and chocolate cake every single day, then you would get tired of pizza and chocolate cake. Everything gets old eventually. I think the NFL would be wise to sort of hold back a little bit don't just let people mainline your product all the time. I think part of what is unique about the NFL is the build up during the week of these games. Because you watch your team, then you talk about your team, then you listen to, Stephen A. Smith prattle on about your team, and then you watch the highlights, then you check the injury reports, then you read the Hogsty, and all of that. And if you can just watch these games all the time, I not immediately, but I think the NFL would wear out their welcome a little bit. So I think they are fundamentally a better product if they are really limited to Sundays. I would personally get rid of the Thursday game.
I don't disagree with any of that. I just think the NFL is going to have to learn. They'll have to learn the hard way. You know what I mean? They'll have to, they're not going to learn that until they put their hand in the fire and they actually get burnt.
Well, yeah, it's all about money. It's the theme of the show is the whole theme of what Chris and I created with this show was ultimately all comes down to money, and major corporations like the NFL, all they have, they're very short term in thinking, and we can increase our profits right now for this, and then they'll worry about the rest later. But
right. So there's games on Wednesdays in a European division, and they're not going to learn their lesson until something like that fails.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Whereas they were visionary, they would maybe think about it, but the lure of immediate profits is too great, especially when you've got a bunch of super old dudes as the owners. They're not thinking 20 years ahead of time. They're thinking I'm going to be dead in 20 years.
Yeah, make it while we can.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we change over as you listen to this. It will definitely already be 2023. We are broadcasting from the future here. So we had a good article that we looked at called "What to Look For in Sports Business in 2023: Streaming Deals, NBA Media Rights, RSN Bankruptcy, and More" by Bill Shea, December 28th, 2022, on The Athletic, an excellent sports content delivery system in and of itself. And they kind of highlighted some stories they think will be big, and then they had sort of a laundry list at the end of other stories. So it's, all told, it's got something like probably about 25 different stories that they're tracking as going to be big. We thought we'd maybe pick a few off here that we'd like or that we're interested in. And I'll start off, Steve. Maybe we'll do two each. I'll say the one that we haven't covered that much, but I think is bubbling, and this sort of was another data point for me, is what's happening with these regional sports networks. This is, we maybe have tangentially talked about this a little bit. We talked about their power, going back to things like the Yes Network and stuff, even for the whole history of the show. But this hasn't been a story like NIL or NCAA or ratings that we've sort of hit on often. But this seems to be. I think this was prescient. I think this is going to be a big sports media story. What happens to these, and it's caught up in who owns these rights, and all the same stuff that we talked about with the NFL.
Well, I think we said earlier on an earlier segment about fighting for the scraps. This is the regional sports networks.
Yeah.
They truly are. And what scraps are they fighting for? They're fighting for your local baseball team. If you're in Kansas City, how to watch the Royals games. Like soccer that like 5 people want to watch, and soccer apparently is going 100%. The MLS is going 100% Apple TV. Apparently, I didn't realize that. So both of you out there who watch it can get that. But it's a fighting for scraps thing, and I mean, it's a tough future when all the streaming stuff we've talked about. It's so much easier just to and maybe more efficient to just stream all these games and have to deal with regional sports networks. How do you watch a regional sports network? Well, you have to get it through cable TV for the most part, or pay a subscription fee, hypothetically, to like Sinclair or something, So I think they are fighting a losing battle a little bit. I think and this is what they're trying to avoid, but I think the future is all these sports networks will have their all streaming package, or package games. You can watch any game, streaming. So I think it's very tough for these regional sports networks. I think they're going to go the way that Dodo, personally.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about this one a bunch, and it's kind of it's a multifactorial problem here. One is just what we've just been talking about, but also it seems like Sinclair and then this Diamond Sports, which they own, but has sort of different leadership, or all in one corporate structure. But there's fighting there, so they're not even on the same page necessarily on how to do this. And I think probably if I were to predict something that's going to happen, and they sort of mentioned it in this Athletic article, is probably hey, maybe like a YouTube TV is going to come in and is going to replace Sinclair. Sinclair and Diamond will have a delivery mechanism. They'll have some of the infrastructure. I think Sinclair will get swapped out for a big streamer, and then it'll get picked up that way, and it'll just become part of those packages.
Oh yeah, because I don't think you're gonna get like two people willing to subscribe to like a Sinclair package, right? Nobody wants that. But
No,
yeah,
and it
I
sounds
do.
like they want out of the business too.
Yeah, I think that's the future. So I agree with you there. Mine, I think this athletic story kind of buried the lead a little bit. I think NIL is the lead
Yeah,
for me. I mean,
insane.
it has fundamentally changed college sports, especially football and especially basketball. I mean, college football is professional sports now, but the idea that the NCAA simultaneously got forced to agree to this NIL, but at the same time they changed the transfer rules. How did that happen? And so the idea basically now, for those of you who don't understand this, is college football and basketball players in particular are free agents. And local boosters can get together and offer multi-million-dollar sponsorship agreements and literally buy a player. So if you are the University of Ohio, Nebraska, and you want the quarterback from University of Miami, get your boosters together, offer them that person a large enough deal, and they're going to come, and they're going to be there tomorrow, immediately. And that is a fundamental change in college sports, and I don't know how you fix that now that the genie's out of the bottle like this. I think it changes the entire tenor of the game. It changes um, why you're watching and how the game is structured and how it appears. And I think it is a major shift that they will never go back from. So I think that's the lead to me.
Yeah, it's fascinating. They have a couple. I mean, they have some stuff on their major list that's obvious, right? Like the streaming, things we just talked about. But the sort of like also ran bullet point has a bunch of buried
It's
leads.
almost
They
more
actually,
interesting than
yeah, I
me.
agree. They actually do mention the NFL's continuing expansion on the Christmas Day. So that our last topic made their bullet points. So there's a double click on that. But a buried lead, even in the buried leads, is that they have one bullet point is a bunch of other pro sports teams for sale. But to me, that's a buried lead right there because I think you have to. I know we're biased, but you would any list that does not have the Commanders' sale on here as a major sports story of 2023, I think is a little suspect because and you can't just lump it into other pro sports teams for sale as a dangling bullet point because it's going to set the market not just for the NFL. It's going to be that because that's going to then reset everything else. Um, and I just think what happens with that sale and that you get, one seat at the table of these 32, I think that is going to be a dominant sports story next year.
Well, yeah, but how much do people really care about it, though? I mean, we're the Hogsty. So obviously, we're all about this. But if you are in, I don't know, Colorado and you're a Broncos fan, is that really that big of a deal? Is it
Well, no,
really a
I
major
mean in a
question?
sports business context as a story, but if you use that example, it might be a big story locally if the Commanders sell for $2 billion more than Denver did. I think in terms of valuations, like
Yeah.
the overall, like I think that's the story. Plus the Snyder, if Snyder was just a generic old guy owner that was, if he was the learners, kind of
Instead of
opting out of the
Satan
national.
incarnate.
Yeah, right. Then yes, you'd get like the valuation story, and those would be interesting and it would be eye popping probably. But the Snyder factor, as the
It's a
just
story.
call it
Yeah, I'm
soap
not
opera.
trying to
But
minimize it, but
but I'm just saying, if it goes for $8 billion, that's a massive sports business
it
story.
would be a more massive sports business story if it went for $2 billion. Which is
Very
you
true.
almost slipped up and said earlier.
Yeah.
Another one on this list that caught my eye that I hadn't ever thought about is the Oakland A's. They have a one-line bullet in here. Where do the Oakland A's end up? With the new local stadium or joining the Raiders in Las Vegas? I didn't realize this was a thing. I'm in Texas. You're in New York. We neither one of us pay a lot of attention to the A's. I didn't realize they were going through this. And what kind How much would the city of Oakland hate Las Vegas if they stole both of their teams? You know, both of their professional sports teams. I guess you call Golden State an Oakland team, I guess. But I didn't realize that was a thing at all. Have you heard this issue?
I knew, not really, but I knew that there was a, are they going to get a new stadium conversation in Oakland. So, it's, I knew that where they would play and would it be local or somewhere else was an issue, but framed this way, I'd never seen it with the Vegas angle.
Yeah, that's something to watch for. And another one to watch for, I think, is the Live Golf Tour stuff, and not really for the reasons you might think. The Live Golf Tour is interesting to me because they stole half of the talent from the PGA, and the PGA and the Live Tour in a war. And if you get away from the Hogsty, I don't know how many people notice or care. And so when you were talking about the scraps earlier, the PGA is one of those sports. Professional golf is one of those sports fighting for scraps. And it's, I think I think they learned really where they are in the pecking order because half their talent left. There's dueling lawsuits, and nobody cared. Still, nobody cares, and nobody's really talking about it other than us and some like sports business stuff. So I think it's a major point, sort of by inverse condemnation almost.
Yeah, if the War of Five Kingdoms for the scraps or whatever is about to happen, you don't want to be splitting yourself in half.
Yeah,
That's generally a bad tactic if you're gearing up for a fight. So yeah, I think they're in a very weak position. I totally agree. I don't think anyone really cares outside of like either nerd golf or just nerd business circles. I will say though, I do, as a prediction, I do think, and apparently they were close with Fox. I do think we'll see let's just call it TV, but when I say TV, I'm talking about all that we say
generally
about TV.
big. Yeah,
Yeah. They will get a TV, they will get an American broadcast rights contract in
you
2023.
think somebody's going to take the flack for getting in bed with the Saudis?
Yeah, I mean, they've apparently been close a few times.
Yeah, that's possible. And I think you were the one that suggested this. I think the future, if they were smart, is to marry up, and have a worldwide golf
Yeah.
domination. That's if they were
AFC,
smart. That's
NFC,
yeah, that's the
AFL,
real
NFL, I
answer.
guess. Yeah.
I,
Maybe
I
the
think they're in too much of a war, for that, to
probably.
happen right now. But at some point, you know, get in bed with your enemy, kind of thing. And let's see what else on here. We'll talk about Twitter on another day. All that is fascinating too. The other one that we've almost talked about a couple times is Fanatics.
Right.
I mean, Fanatics is way bigger than some of you out there probably realize. They are dominating the merchandise marketing. Apparently, this story claims that there's a plan for Fanatics to get into sports gambling. So at some point, you and I will have to do Fanatics and do a deep dive into their empire.
It is fascinating that material culture in the sale of material culture seems to be booming even as like the audience on some of this stuff is fracturing. That's and you saw this actually with the music industry when their business models got turned on top of their head, and you saw things like merchandise was a much quicker way to get money to the artists and stuff like that. They this whole selling a material culture that went with the music became a big thing, so big that the record labels actually started to link their bands to these, like, I don't forget, it's like 80/20 rules or whatever, which basically said if you sign with Warner Brothers, before all your t-shirt sales were just to the band or the artist. Now a lot of these new contracts, they say, and we're going to get a cut of the whole 360 type of who you are in terms of your revenue streams. And I think it's interesting to me that as they need to make up revenue, what material culture and basically sales of stuff become even more important.
Yeah, well, and then touring revenue. Who's funding it? How does that revenue get split up? Because the only way artists really make significant money anymore is touring. They don't make money on album sales or record sales, and like the streaming revenue from like Tidal and Spotify and stuff is peanuts.
Negligible. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so even like the Taylor Swifts of the world, the big like Metallica, the biggest names, um, like as an example, this is an old name, but Def Leppard, probably one of the biggest names in rock music, came out with an album this year. Did anybody know that? No, it was there for 5 minutes. It sold it to the diehards, and it's totally gone. Years like 20 years ago, that just wasn't the case. And so the music industries, the record labels are turned on their head. They know they can't make money on releasing albums, and so yeah, you're going to take cuts of a bunch of other things, and for sure.
Yeah, 360 deals is what they're called, which is basically like, because merchandise was the only thing that the bands actually pocketed fully, but now the labels will give us a cut of that too. And just to do all back to the show, for many of these touring artists or that want to tour and make money off that, the new album is a loss leader. It is essentially a way to bring is CD to bring you into Best Buy to buy a refrigerator.
If I was a new band, I would be tempted to forego record label entirely anymore and hire a quality PR, music industry PR person. The problem, of course, is that they need revenue, and basically the record label is basically a bank. Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, if you're a really young band, you can't afford to do some of this. But if you had any other access to capital at all, I would probably forego a record deal entirely and just promote myself independently.
Yeah, and many are, but it's still not. It's a hustle though. Still, it's not.
Yeah, and you have to have money to make money. That's the thing. Four kids in a garage can't afford to do that. Even however good they are, you can have the next Eddie Van Halen. He can't afford to tour. It doesn't matter.
Right. And the labels have been ripping off artists for 100 years, so they know how to stay ahead of the game on the ripoff.
Does everybody know how this works? I mean, how in the old days you'd get a percentage, so they would get like 8 cents to the dollar on a record sale, but then you don't get the 8 cents until you repay the amount of money that the record label put out to let you make the record.
Production costs, marketing costs,
and
all
it can
that.
be a lot of money. And so a lot of these artists would sell a ton of money and not make a dime and be broke. And this
sometimes
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was real racket. If you're willing to sell your soul, that was a good business to get into.
Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy New Year. I hope you enjoyed New Year's, and we 2023 will be, as this list has attested, there's going to be a lot going on. And to pat ourselves on the back, a lot of these stories are things that we actually have been covering for years as they bubbled up.
Yeah, you and I have done a pretty good job of predicting the future in these things.
Yeah. So that means that the great SEC semi-pro league of our dreams will come.
It's coming, man. I'm telling you, it's coming. In terms of the Hogsty, real quick, we are still in the midst of covering the Washington Redskins Commanders football team. We've got 2 more weeks of regular season and all of that. So the show is released on Thursday morning. We have Seasons of Discontent, which is normally Tuesdays and Thursdays. So keep an eye on that, and we have all of our regular written content.
I'm sure, by now you already, Deshaun, Mr. Massage Table ruined the Commanders playoff hopes.
Mr. Massage Table. Our buddy, our Hogsty co-host Dave is going to that game, and he said, "What should I bring? What do I do?" And I said, "Make a sign that just says, 'Hey, Deshaun, I know some Instagram models want their numbers,' and just hold that sign up." That's what I would do.
Yeah. There's no shortage of great one-liner signs. Yeah, he should.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well. All right, Steve, we will talk in 2 weeks.
All right. Bye.